Hi guys, Raindell here. Today we're talking about status effects. How exactly does the formula for the chance to proc function? How can you make sure to protect yourself against status effects, make sure to land them? What actually happens when you're affected by them? And just overall strategy about that. So let's begin. Okay, so let's look at the formula. First of all, on the left side is a simple addition. You add your unit's faith and then the target's faith together. If it's a super high number, your chances to land these status effects is going to be way higher. Low number, lower chances. So that's why when you have a low faith, you are more resistant to status effects, but you also have less chance to land your own. Then on the right side is a simple calculation as well. You add your status effect chance modifier on your skill. Usually that's 25%, but for most limit breaks, it's going to be 67%. And then some other skills have different modifiers. And you reduce or add a number based on the resistances or weaknesses to that status effect that your target has. And then you multiply these two sides together, and there you go. That's your final proc chance. Let's look at some examples. So, scenario number 1, we're using King Mont. He's trying to use Fang of Leonis, which has a 25% base chance, and our King Mont in this example has a faith of 50. So first, we're going to target Whisper. Now, disclaimer, Whisper has a base 50% resistance to disable. So what's going to happen? Well, on the left side equation, we have 50 plus 50, so that would be 100, considering that Whisper also has a faith of 50. But on the right side, we have a 25% base chance minus 50% resistances. So the right side equation is going to be 0%. Overall, we cannot affect Whisper with a 25% chance disable. But then, if we try the same thing against Elshra also have 50 faith in our example, but she has a 10% weakness to disable. Well, what's going to happen here is on one side, 50 plus 50, we have 100% of our base chance thanks to the faith, but on the other side, she has a 35% chance to be affected. 25, the base chance of Fang of Leonis, but an extra 10% from her weakness. Overall, we're going to have 35% total. Now, if we were attacking an enemy with no resistances or weaknesses, it would be the same thing, a total of 25% instead. So what happens if we increase the faith of King Mont to 70 this time? So here we go. Against Whisper, same exact thing is going to happen. Yes, we increase the left side equation and we now have 120% times the right side one. But 25 minus 50 is still 0. Doesn't matter what the fate levels are. If your character has more resistance than the status effect's base chance, you can't land a status effect. But faith does have a really high impact on the chances. If we had a 70 faith King Mont against a 97 faith Elshra, which realistically Elshra always has 97 faith, well, the faith side of the equation is now 167 times the 35% that we have because of the 10% disable weakness, means that our overall chance is 58%. And that's where you see the power of faith and then the power of weaknesses or resistances. Now, on my examples on screen, I've only put resistances that are in the unit's kits, but you can get resistance to status effects in the form of equipment. Every Esper has some when they get to their 3-star versions, and then some vision cards also give you some resistances. So there are a lot of ways to get resistance to ailments, and you should probably learn them, especially if you want to do some class matches or manual play, where you can really leverage that knowledge to your advantage. Moving on to a final example. If we're using a move like a limit break with a super high chance, the formula becomes way more aggressive. So again, we're using a King Mont with a faith of 70, but this time he's using his limit break to try to land a Berserk. Now, if we're targeting Helena has 10% Berserk resist, but she's usually run at 97 faith. So what is this going to do? Well, on the faith side, again, 70 faith on King Mont plus 97 faith from Helena means 167 times the mod. But on the other side, we have a base of 67 minus the 10% resistance, meaning overall, all factor included, we have a 95% chance to proc the Berserk. If Helena did not have a 10% resistance, that would be a 100% chance to Berserk, which is pretty impressive. Then if we're using a target with a lower faith, like 50 is usually the baseline, I very rarely see units go all the way down to 30 because they can't proc bells reliably when they do. So against a 50 faith target, well, King Mont has 70, Nasha has 50, so it's 120 on this side, times 67%. Well, you still have 80% chance to proc, so it's very reliable. Now, some status effects have some really important impact on your game that is not really documented anywhere. Now, if you want to see this in the form of a super cool table that explains everything precisely, on warthevisions.info, Meow had done a super good work of compiling all that information into a comprehensive table. I will put the link in the description below, so go ahead and watch that, or go ahead and look at that. It is really good. But really quickly, for status effects, increase damage taken by 50%, which is very impactful, and not everybody knows that. Berserk is one of them, Chicken if you reduce an enemy's bravery below 10, and then Sleep for the hit that wakes you up, and Toad while you're transformed. All these increase damage taken, which is pretty important. Then most status effects, when they affect you, will interrupt your current spell, being Berserked, Chickened, Charm, Confused, Disable, Paralyzed, Petrified, and you can see the rest on screen. But all those status effects are going to interrupt your current spell when they proc. There is one exception, which is Silence. It will only interrupt you if you're using a magic-based ability. So if you're a ranger charging Mega Shot, that will not be interrupted by Silence. Then a couple status effects reduce your dodge chance to 0, and that's another pretty cool tool because if you're casting, for example, Sleep or a Stop on a dodge unit while they're affected by the status effect, you can hit all your abilities and they will not be able to dodge. So that's something that's not very widely known, but is a really good tool. Disable also reduces your evasion to 0, which I was very surprised to learn about. And then a lot of status effects also prevent your reactions. So while you're berserked, you will not use reaction abilities. Same for Chicken, Disable, Paralyze. Again, Silence only prevents reaction abilities that scale off magic, so not every one of them. But the others will prevent you from reacting as well. So this table here is a really good thing to know, and you should know them. Like, oh, how can I interrupt the enemy's spell? Well, you have a boatload of options to prevent their spell from going off. It's not just Jamming Thrust that can do that. Now, the Nullify status effect is something that it took a while for me to understand. What Nullify does is it prevents you from being affected by the status effect, but you have to cast it in advance, because if you're currently affected by these status effects, it will not remove it. So originally, I thought that something like Moore's TMR that nullifies Sleep, Slow, and Berserk would actually cure Berserk on your units. But no, you really have to use it ahead of time, and then if the enemy tries to affect you with Berserk during the 3 turns after you have the Nullify effect, you will effectively be immune. So it's like a 100% resistance to all those status effects for 3 turns. Now, for Nullify, there are a couple of sources in the game. A lot of classes have some abilities that nullify status effects. Notably, Cleric, I think, is the example with the most ability to disable status effects before they arrive. But there are a couple equipments that I really like bringing into my live PvP teams because they can allow my team to be prepared for a wider variety of scenarios. I did not put it on screen. Frederica's TMR is one of them. The reason why it didn't make it on the screen is because it's single target, but it can protect allies against Disable, Immobilize, and Stop, so that's pretty good. Then AoE options are awesome, like Moore's TMR that just got released, nullifies Sleep, Slow, and Berserk for allies for a couple turns. That is very important. If you don't have to be and you're fighting an enemy King Mont, this can prevent him from berserking your entire team with his limit break. Then Wish for Peace protects you against Stop and Blind. Stop is a really important one to be protected against, especially if you're going to fight a Ketone or a Shadow Lynx. It makes sure that you have a fighting chance. And then if you have 9S's TMR, that one protects you against Nullify, Confusion, and Charm, and it's the only way, as far as I know, to protect your entire team against Charm for a couple turns. So these are really powerful tools to bring. Usually, what I'll do is I'll make sure that my team has one way to deal with every status effect that I feel the need for. So if there's 3 characters on my team that don't have innate charm resistance, I'll probably bring 9S's TMR into that team, just to make sure that I have a method of countering a charm team if I encounter one. Doesn't mean I'll use that ability every fight. If I'm not fighting anybody that has a chance to charm, no need for it. I'll cast something that's more useful. But having it on one of my 3 units is a really good strategy. And then same goes for PvE levels where you know you're going to fight Lamias, for example, that tend to charm a lot. Or even for guild battles or arena, if you fear a specific strategy, you can equip the TMRs that will protect you against it. And it's a really reliable way to make sure that at least this specific status effect does not screw up your strategy. So that was it, guys. I did not want to take this one too long, but if you have any questions, things that I did not cover and that you'd like to ask, go ahead. I'll make sure to answer all the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.